If you're taking vitamin D, vitamin D3, K2, stop taking it until you hear this. It's Dr. Living Good digging deep into the sun hormone. The sun hormone. It acts like a hormone inside the body. Vitamin D, we understand a lot of the benefits. If you don't, I'm going to cover those right now. I think it's very crucial. One of the most important vitamins to be getting into your body. Are you doing it wrong? Are you possibly harming yourself by trying to put in vitamin D, vitamin D2 on prescription, vitamin D3 plus K2, which you can queue up the other video that I've previously done on that. But I want to take it one step further. Even if you've gotten all the way to that point and you're taking D3 plus K2, you must be taking this with it, understanding this research. I'm going to show you the studies today. Let's take a trip here. The sun hormone regulates many body processes. This is why vitamin D is so important. Lowers blood pressure levels, controls, and makes the hormones. In fact, if you don't have enough vitamin D in your body, that's a precursor to every hormone in your body. Maybe that's your hormone causes. When we dig deeper, blood cholesterol levels, dependent on vitamin D, it's involved in making that cholesterol. Lowers excessively high blood sugars. Wow, your blood sugar control. And it increases white blood cells. How many dealing with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugars, and low white blood cells, low immunity? What a powerhouse. So you can see why this is so crucially important. Now, your best source of it, 20 minutes of sunshine. And maybe when you're watching it this time of year, you can get that sunshine. Other times of the year, you can't get it. We need to be supplementing with it. And there's a very toxic way to do that. There's a potentially harmful way to do that. And then there is the research that shows the key way to get supplementation with D3 properly in the body without messing anything else up. Because as powerful as the sun hormone is, if you do it wrong, it can be equally as harmful the other direction. So 20 minutes of sun exposure, use the sun, that's our best source. Salmon's a good source for food, by the way. Eggs have a little bit in it as well. So we can get a little bit of this in food. Now, I want to walk through just the difference in the types of forms of vitamin D3. Then we're going to get to the key. If you're taking vitamin D3, do not miss this one thing. I guarantee most of you listening are not doing this thing. Now, differentiation first between D3 and D2. They did a big study years ago, thousands of people, and they looked at if you take D3, what happens to mortality rates long-term, like living and dying of all causes for taking D3 and then taking D2. Now, why D2 isn't significant is because that is typically the prescription form. Now, there are food forms. It's found in some mushrooms. It's found in some yeast, and there's no problem with that. If D2 existing in the body, it just has to be converted. But typically, the synthetic form that you get in a prescription form is going to be vitamin D2. Look at the research. Placebo or no treatment, vitamin D3 significantly reduced the mortality by 11%, all causes of death by 11%, whereas vitamin D2 intake increased mortality by 14%. That is a 15% swing, peeps, between taking the prescription 50,000 IUs, my doctor gave me this thing once a week to take, versus taking vitamin D3. 15% reduction in mortality between those two groups. Shocking stat. Very few people talk about it. That's why I needed to start with that. So there's check the box number one. So stop taking vitamin D until you understand that right there. It needs to be D3. Some of you are already there listening. Let's go to step number 2. When we start taking D3, look at all the benefits we start to get. The reductions in cancers. Just by getting your blood levels high enough, getting enough in your body, you're going to start reducing cancer risk, shows the research. So we want to be testing our vitamin D3 on a yearly basis. That means not testing just vitamin D2, specifically asking your doctor to test vitamin D3. How high does it need to be, Dr. Living Good? We want to get it up above 50. Now, the summertime's a great time to do this. A bad time to test your vitamin D3 is in the bowels of winter. You just get frustrated. I just checked my D3, it's January and it's low. Yeah, it's probably going to be a little depleted during that time of the year. Getting it above 50 is an 83% reduction in types of breast cancer. 17% reduction in ovarian cancer, 60% reduction in colon cancer, type 1 diabetes impacts, fractures, multiple sclerosis, heart attacks in men, kidney cancers, all impacted when you get that blood level number above 50. Keep it below 100, right? If we go too high, again, it's a powerful hormone mimicker in our body. We can get too much of it. We can get too much water. You can get too much of anything. So keeping it right in a 50 to 100 range of D3, okay? We've understood D2 compared to D3. We're measuring our levels. So if you got to that point, okay, now we got to make sure we're not doing harm. What do we add to it? Glad you asked. D3 plus K2. When we start to look at what D3 does in the body, one of its jobs, among all those things, the reason it's so good for fractures, the reason it's so good for bone health, if you are dealing with osteopenia, osteoporosis, it's a very important vitamin to get into your body and get enough of, because it moves calcium out of the blood and puts it into the arteries. So it's moving it and putting it into the arteries. That's step one of a shuttle system. It's like at the airport, the plane drops you off a curbside, but then you got to take a shuttle to get to your car, right? Your rental car. That's what's happening here. The airplane is D3, powerful, bringing all kinds of big benefits in, flying, landing, things are going everywhere. It's impacting a lot of stuff. White blood cells are going up, blood sugars are going down, cholesterol is going down. It's impacting all those things. It's also shipping out calcium as part of the baggage. But you need that shuttle over to get the rental car. K2 is that shuttle. K2 keeps the calcium in check. So if you take too much vitamin D3, going back to measuring your levels, you can get too much hypercalcemia, especially in your arteries. It leads to blood vessel calcification, BVC, too much hypercalcemia, calcium, phosphorus in the blood, impacting the arteries itself. That is associated with heart disease because it's calcification of our arteries, and it's one of the main underlying causes of heart disease. And vitamin K2 deficiency is directly associated in studies with arterial calcification. So when we give higher doses of vitamin K2 to animals suffering with BBC, there's a significant impact on what those arteries do. So what are we trying to say? When using the powerful jet that is D3 and it lands, we want to make sure that we're using K2 to say, okay, D3 kicked out the passengers, calcium being one of them, calcium standing at the curb, that is now our arteries. If we leave it there, it's going to calcify our arteries, increase our heart disease risk. We're going to have K2 pick up the shuttle and take it to the bones being the rental car. Okay, so it's going to pick it up and move it. And that is a crucial step. Not to be confused so often with K1, which is for blood thinning. K2, its brother, its sister, is involved in protecting your arteries. We get way too little of this. How do I get vitamin K2 in, Dr. Livingood? You can supplement with it, but fermented foods are a great source. Any sort of fermented food, sauerkrauts and pickles and kombuchas, that would be a way to do it. But getting that in significantly reduces BVC and heart disease risk. Okay, so step one, D3, not D2. Step two, measure your levels. We need it above 50, but not higher than 100. Ideally, if you go a little over 100 for a little while, just back off. It's okay, right? But we don't want to keep pushing when we're above 100 is my point. Step three, we got to have K2. A lot of you, if you've been following me, probably have those three. But here's the missing piece that becomes very important that I want to show you. If you're not getting this piece, you could be putting yourself at risk. Here's what you need to know about D3 and even taking it with K2 is that you need to be taking it with magnesium. Here's 4 studies I'm going to show you on magnesium's status and supplementation and the influence that it has on vitamin D, magnesium. Simple conclusion out of the gates when they looked at a lot of different numbers, the blood testing numbers that I was talking to you about that suggest optimal magnesium status may be important for optimizing your vitamin D3. Okay, Dr. Livingood, you're stop taking vitamin D3 plus K2. Before you hear this, I'm not there yet. It gets more interesting. This is just, let's just tippy toe into the water. Now we go to the next randomized, double-blinded control trial. Okay. In this, significant impacts on participants who received magnesium and vitamin D had a greater increase in their vitamin D levels compared with participants that took vitamin D only. Now, what this is saying is that if you're taking vitamin D3 plus K2 and you are missing magnesium in that supplement, you are now not getting the benefits of the person next to you that is taking the magnesium with those supplements. So now it starts to get a little bit more interesting. But we keep going. Study number 3, magnesium assists in the activation of vitamin D, which helps regulate calcium phosphate homeostasis to influence the growth and the maintenance of the bones. All the enzymes that metabolize vitamin D seem to require magnesium. All the enzymes that metabolize vitamin D seem to require magnesium. which acts as a cofactor in those reactions in the liver and the kidneys. Is the health of your liver and the kidneys dependent on how you process the vitamin D3 needing to have magnesium? Deficiency in either of these nutrients is reported to be associated with various disorders. Check if you have any of these: skeletal deformities, cardiovascular diseases, and metabolic syndrome. That right there is 75+% of America right now, let alone worldwide. It is therefore essential to ensure that the recommended amount of magnesium is consumed to obtain the optimal benefits of vitamin D3. We've taken it up a notch. I haven't even got to the 4th study yet. Now we're impacting, if we are taking D3 and we're not taking K2, we're at risk of calcifying arteries, but there's so many benefits of D3. I agree, it's phenomenal. Reducing cancers and reducing risk of death. So we got to put K2 with it, but then we're saying the key element to activate the D3, to actually get the most out of it, to be using and getting the protection of your liver, the protection of your kidneys, the protection of your heart, metabolic syndrome. We've got to have magnesium with it. Let's go to study number 4. This is where it really gets interesting. February 26, 2018, in the Journal of the American Osteopathic Association, found vitamin D can't be metabolized without sufficient magnesium levels, meaning that vitamin D remains stored and inactive for as many as 50% of Americans. Is it possible when you're measuring the blood levels of your vitamin D3, you're frustrated because it didn't go up, that it's not in your blood because it's not actually activated? It's sitting in your tissues, in your liver, in your kidney, not being used. And you haven't even activated yet because you're missing this crucial nutrient taken with it. People are taking vitamin D supplements but don't realize how it gets metabolized. Without magnesium, vitamin D is not really useful or safe. Osteopathic medicine, PhD. So I'm not telling you this to freak you out if you've been taking vitamin D in a synthetic form, vitamin D2, you want to switch to vitamin D3. I'm not trying to freak you out if you've been taking vitamin D3, but you're missing vitamin K2 and the other crucial nutrients. I'm not trying to freak you out if you're taking D3 and you're taking vitamin K2 and you have not been taking magnesium. But there is a process here of putting these things together in the proper form. Now, vitamin D, vitamin K2, fat-soluble vitamins. You have to take them with fat. Very important. You should probably take them with their other 2 brothers and sisters as well, E and A, because they all work together. Okay? You probably want to add a little zinc in there because it's going to help the absorption of those. But it is absolutely crucial to be putting in magnesium. 2 things you can do. 1, start supplementing with a higher dose of magnesium for a period of time to top your levels back up. I take 300 to 400 milligrams of this a day. I'll put the link for ours below. Okay. The reason I put that one below is because I use all 7 forms. Which form do I need the most, Dr. Livinggood? Which form would be the best? You need different vehicles to get you different places, right? As soon as vitamin D drops you off on the plane and vitamin K2 takes you on a shuttle over to the rental car, you could rent a truck, you could rent a car, you could rent a motorcycle. It depends where you need to go. Do you need to go to the outback? Do you need to go to the woods? Do you need to go downtown? Where do you need to go? Do you need to go out in the water? Maybe you need a boat. You need to rent something different because it needs to go to your brain. It needs to go to your heart. It needs to go to your muscles. That's what magnesium does. That's why I use all different 7 forms, different vehicles to take it different places, cross the blood-brain barrier, take it into the heart, take it into the muscles, get it to multiple places, help the digestive system, multiple uses for it. But look for magnesium in your vitamin D3. If it is in there, then the people providing it understand this research. And what I'm leaning into more and more is that we have a world full of different resources and supplements and things right now. And what is said on the bottle, number 1, is not actually what's in there. This is shocking. I'll reveal more soon. It is unbelievable. The garbage and the lack of actual nutrient value that is being claimed in a lot of different products that's not actually in it. And then number 2, we're not actually leaning into the research. And this has taken me 3 or 4 years to understand all the pieces here and why I've continued to improve my vitamin D formula, just like I just added a little bit of copper in there, because if you're taking zinc without any form of copper, you can really start to deplete those levels inside of the body and you start creating other problems. Or the fact that you're taking vitamin D3 and K2, but it's using up all your magnesium. So are you having headaches now? Are you having muscle issues? Are you having flutters? Are you having digestive problems? Because you're taking high amounts of vitamin D3, but it's using up all your magnesium. These are the things to think about, how they synergistically work together and we can stack them together. There shows the research. You can check those links out below. As far as this, I'm leaning into it, wanted to share it with you. I feel like the way that's all laid out helps to make sense of how we can get the most out of the sun hormone without depleting the amount of magnesium inside of our body, and how crucial this is. It's such an easy step if done right. Please share this with someone else that might be taking that supplement that really needs to understand. Put this all together. Go make it a great day. You might as well. You're never going to get it back. And check out the next video right here.